Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human, Gina. If you're new, welcome. If you are returning, I appreciate it very much. Today, I want to talk about something that arrived to me yesterday as kind of an epiphany or a revelation. I'm not sure the difference, but I left my business, which, if you've heard my previous podcasts, you're aware of this. I left the business that I shared as a partner with my ex-husband for just about 12 years. I left that business or retired just a few months ago, the end of June. It's now the end of September. And when I left my business, I did it without a lot of contemplation. It was one of the scariest things I'd ever done because my business is my livelihood. It's my way to make money. And I knew that if I didn't leave, that I wouldn't be completely clear in order to receive what's coming next to me in my life. I'm sorry, what's coming next for me in my life. So, at the encouragement of my spirit guides, which came through a reading one day when I was at work, this was several months ago. I was having a difficult day as my energy had been changing over the previous months towards. Um, you've probably felt this if you've had a job you didn't care for anymore. You start to get impatient with what you're doing. Your mind wanders and you want to be elsewhere. And I found myself longing to be somewhere else, even though I had no idea where that was. It was kind of strange, but I think this was my energy. This is my energetic makeup or my capacity for what I had been doing previously, which is the business with my ex-husband, the relationship before that, and all of that led up to the breakdown that I had where I ended up in the hospital. And then I decided to stay as long as I felt like I needed in order to kind of learn who I was and identify the behavior traits and tendencies within me that allowed the environment that I was in to exist. Meaning, I didn't want to invite into my life again another karmic relationship. So, and what I mean by that, and I'll just briefly summarize, is we bring karma into this world with us. And one of my karmic lessons that my soul wanted to tackle during this lifetime was um, my identification as a victim. And because I identified as a victim, of course, this is subconsciously or unconsciously, I invited relationships and situations into my life where I played that role. So, I mean, that's probably as simply as I can put it. But the relationship I had with my ex-husband, which was nearly 25 years, was an excellent example of that. I would call it a microcosm, but it's actually a macrocosm because it was a good part of my life where I was involved with a person who was emotionally vacant, who had no emotional compass, who just took what he needed without thought of the damage he was doing. So I'm not villainizing him in the moment. I just want to kind of summarize what happened. And I think that being in that environment for so long and going through the trauma of the end of that relationship and ending up in the hospital and really made me just kind of break down and surrender to myself, to the universe, to tell him, I basically said, please help me. I'm done. I can't live this way anymore. I literally could not imagine going back into a relationship that had any similarities to the one that I just left. And I couldn't imagine looking back at my life, any circumstance, situation, or relationship I had been in to ever reoccur. I'd rather die. And I'm not being, dramatic. I really felt that way. It was almost like a desperate feeling of I can't go back. Almost like I had been pushed so far to the edge, I had to fall off. I couldn't pull myself back onto the same level of life and energy and mindset and self-care that I had lived in my entire life. So in that energy, I had no choice but to surrender, which sent me on this inward journey where I isolated myself for more than a year, and I just sat with myself, and I allowed everything that I've ever felt, every negative feeling and emotion to come up through me to be processed and then released. And of course, I didn't understand that that's what I was doing at the time, but that's what ended up happening. And during that internal, um, the time that I spent with myself, without any external distractions, without any blame, without anything external and interrupting this process that I knew I had to go through. It was almost like when you enter a tunnel, you know you have to go through the entire thing in order to get to the other side. And I had an understanding, even though it wasn't a mental one, that I had to get through this. And I didn't know where I was going, who I was going to be at the end of this, if I was even going to survive it, to be quite honest. Because I had such an innate knowing that I could not survive the way I had my whole life anymore. So in this during this time, I would describe it as a death. I had to die. My ego had to die, which is basically what happens. And I knew that I had to do something else. So I didn't care where I was going. I didn't care what the future looked like. I had no idea what that was. And I think looking back, if we try to imagine where we're going to end up, that's our ego or our mind trying to control it. So it limits what we are able to let go of. It limits our ability to let go of ourselves, of our ideal of ourselves, and to really fall inward and to really just trust the universe and our own soul that we are being taken where we're meant to go. And it's almost like a secret location where you have to be blindfolded and thrown in the back of a van and travel through this distance that you have no idea where you're going, and it's in the complete darkness, but you just have to trust that where you're going is where you're meant to go. And you have to let go of your mental controls. You have to let go of all the thoughts that tell you, you don't know where you're going, it's going to be dangerous, it's going to be bad, it's going to be worse. Go back to what's familiar, even though it's devastating. And that is a real thing. I mean, that is a real thing. Your mind wants you to stay where it perceives itself most safe. And the mind's ability to tolerate the intolerable is really the double-edged sword that us survivors live with. Because on one hand, you build this tolerance and the shield through your life to get you through your life. I mean, you can't do without it. And then one day you see a different path that emerges before you, and you have to now disengage this blade in your brain, this double-edged sword that got you through to where you are, but now is no longer useful. It's actually a detriment or capable of destroying where you're going. So you have to disengage with that. And that for me was the most difficult thing, disengaging with that shield that my mind had created in order to protect me. So telling myself that, okay, it wasn't that bad, and at least you survived, or at least he didn't hit you, all the things we tell ourselves to make ourselves comfortable with where we are. We have to disengage that or drop it. We have to allow that to die. And it's a process. It is absolutely a process. And I had a lot of setbacks during this time where I would wake up one morning absolutely petrified that where I was going was going to be worse than where I came from. And I would have to really calm myself down and talk myself off the ledge. And I viewed myself as two people. Of course, I was a soul and a human, but I'd always seen myself that way. But this was a time where I was using myself, my soul self, to console and to counsel my human self or my mind. And I had to tell myself, get off the ledge, kid. You're gonna, there's nothing there for you anymore. And I would think about, well, at least he was nice to me, at least he was affectionate, at least this and that, and this is our fear of what's ahead of us, our fear of the unknown. And this is a powerful thing, especially when you're recovering from a devastation. For me, I should have left my relationship long before I did. But because I stayed so long, I suffered physically and energetically and emotionally and mentally in every way. And I ended up in a nervous breakdown. And after all that, my brain still wanted me to consider going back. It was an amazing thing. I would say to myself, are you friggin' kidding me? And then I would have to tell myself, think about what you're really missing. What are you missing? Are you missing the man and the relationship, or are you missing the ideal of it? And I really had to sit with that. And yes, of course, I was missing the ideal. It had nothing to do with what I actually went through, which was, of course, not good for me. But our survival instincts are very powerful. You know, our reptilian brain is our, fight or flight, which is our innate or baser instincts that no matter what else we know, or however much our brain is developed or however intelligent we are, that fight or flight is there. It is the root of our brain. And it's a protective mechanism. It protects us if we are in danger. It that instinct to flee is engaged, and we get out of harm's way, or we fight for our life. And that part of our brain is, it's an ancient part of our brain, and I'm not saying it's not useful, but it certainly shouldn't be the guide or the leader of where we go in our life. So when we are wholly and completely controlled or engaged with our shields, we always justify pain, and we always tolerate the intolerable. And I don't know about you, I may be a unique example because of the trauma in my life, but I think more than we realize, there are many, many people who have maybe not the same experience as mine, but certainly experiences that cause them trauma, whether they identify it as trauma or not. And throughout our lives, we build these shields, and these shields protect us until they, um, till they don't, and then they become too heavy, and we get buried beneath them, and we give up. So we come to a crossroads in our life. And for me, thank God, I mean, thank the universe that I was knocked on my ass, quite literally, or otherwise, I don't know how much longer I would have done this. Probably the rest of this life and maybe the next one. And this is the karma my soul wanted to overcome in this lifetime. So if you are struggling and you have not yet overcome, and maybe you won't in this life, that's what's meant to happen. So beating yourself up because you're still, struggling with your demons or your shadow self is counterproductive, counterintuitive. It's counter to the heart we have to have in this life in order to not just survive it, but see ourselves as worthy of more. And I really don't. I have to just be so grateful for my soul deciding when we were done, because if it were up to my brain, I would have kept going, because in my brain, I was in an environment where I had another person to, you know, as a partner, even though that partnership was toxic. When I look back at what I went through, I would have stayed forever. I didn't know any better. I didn't know there was something more for me. So going through all that, this year or so of this introspection, and really, um, telling myself in the darkest moments where I was wailing and crying, Gina, you have to get through this, because you have to get through the other side. If you swallow it again, if you justify it again, if you tell yourself you're going to be fine again, you are avoiding your lessons. You're avoiding this opportunity to overcome this karma. And of course, I didn't verbalize it that way. In my mind, it was just I knew I had to get through that dark tunnel. I didn't really have any articulation around what that meant until, of course, afterwards. So looking back in the rearview mirror, everything's very clear. So I had to tell myself, Gina, you can't go back. There's nothing for you back there. You have to go forward. And I would cry and moan, and I mean, almost to the point where I certainly ended up with headaches, but I would almost throw up. I would almost have to like physically purge what was in my stomach in order to get through the emotions I was in. And this happened a lot. I would cry many times during the day, but then I'd have moments of absolute peace. And I knew in those moments, I knew my soul was giving me those moments to keep me motivated, because if I would have had to just live in that misery indefinitely, I don't know that I would have survived it. And I don't know what I would have done, but I don't think I would have harmed myself. I don't think I mean it that way. I just don't know what would have happened without those moments of peace, where it's almost like the eye of the hurricane, where you're given this moment where it's absolutely blissful, and then you can kind of recharge. And this was a process of about 7 months between my stay at the hospital, my 4-hour hospital event, and when I felt finally free of this. So during that 7 months, it was chaotic, it was difficult, it was a very focused and concentrated effort to get through that dark tunnel. I knew that if I backed out and went around again, and I was only avoiding the inevitable, because for me there was no going back. So my soul was giving me these insights and these you know glimpses of my future, just to keep me going. And I would thank her. I would tell her, thank you so much for helping me to see what's ahead, because I don't know how much longer I can do this. And I would just wail. And sometimes I would be so exhausted I wouldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And this is almost like an illness. You have to purge an illness. So when you have the flu, you get a high fever, you cough, you sweat. You have to purge it out of your body, and it comes out of your cells. It comes through your mucus, your tears, and that's where the toxins. That's how the toxins leave you. It's the same thing. You have to purge this energy out of your body, and it comes out in your tears, in your emotionals. And I described this before, and I think I'll do a podcast about this subject, which is the emotional sweeping of our body. Is when you cry and you moan, and you almost like tribal moans. You're connecting with a tone that really helps your body expel this. It's I can't even describe it because I don't understand it mentally. It's just something I know with my body. It's almost like striking a drum beat in a certain tone in order to activate something inside of you, a devil or a demon that wakes it up. And then once it's awake, you can dislodge it, and you can expel it out of with your emotional wailing or crying. And of course the tears expel the sodium in your body, which holds on to that negativity. And I don't even know how I know this, but I do. So when you cry and when you sweat, you're expelling this energy, and you're freeing it from your body. And it takes time, especially if you're 58 years old like I was, with a lifetime of karmic weight inside of my energy. It was almost like I was built from this karma, and I had to completely crumble in order to be rebuilt with this clean new energy, this crystalline energy. And I know, that is, I think it's a catch word or a key word these days, but I believe that wholly and completely, that my carbon-based energy was being replaced with a lighter crystalline energy. And this has been told to me too by my spirit guides and other resources, in my reading and research, that my energy is actually being upgraded and replaced. I've mentioned this before. So this is not a comfortable process, and I'm still dealing with this. And I'm being told, reminded, or validated through the readings and through the research that I'm doing, which the research I'm doing is guided by my spirit team. So just be aware that if I pick up a book, it's because that's the book I'm meant to read. If I look at a blog post or a an Instagram post, which, I do on occasion, I'm meant to look at that if I glean something that brings me forward. And that's how our spirit guides work. This is how our higher self works. They guide you to information that helps you learn. So I have a nice stack of books right now of the research I've been doing to understand myself on an energetic level. And it's not all about spirituality. Some of it's about the occult. Some of it's about, you know, beings from other universes that come here. It's not just spirituality. It is the universe. It's everything. It's my spirit guides and my higher self have led me to these other resources that have informed my brain, which helps me to kind of emulate what's happening or assimilate what's happening, which is my energy is changing. And it's so strange because I feel ill sometimes, and on some days I can't get out of bed, and other days I'll have a lot of energy and I'll get through most of the day, and then I literally crash and burn. And I used to get really upset, and I'd say, "What is wrong with me? Why don't I feel better?" Like, I go back to that day in the hospital where I spent 4 hours where my energy broke, and how I felt afterwards, how I had to breathe deeply in order to just breathe, and I anxiety was a big part of my energy, and I was in this complete turmoil energetically, of course emotionally too at the time, but the energetic chaos is still there. It's not nearly as strong, and I have days or even weeks now where I feel normal again, quote unquote, because that is such a subjective term. But it's amazing. I still feel, and I'll describe some of the symptoms, and maybe you have felt these too, because we're all going through this upgrade in one way or another. Your awareness of it, of course, has a lot to do with it, because I'm aiding it as best I can by doing the things that my research tells me to do, which is be in a natural body of water, literally immerse yourself, get into nature as much as you can, drink as much water as you can, eliminate sugars and salts from your diet, because salt is it's an enzyme in our body, or sodium, that processes our heavy negative emotions. It's almost like hard, like you hard pack ice around things to keep to store to preserve it. Once you elevate into this crystalline energy, the salt is no longer needed. You don't need it anymore. You're not packing and saving any negative emotion. So it gets expelled from your body. And this is one of the symptoms of this extraction of sodium out of my body. First of all, I can't eat it anymore. So I used to keep frozen foods where I would have a frozen pizza and a frozen Amy's meal, which to me were the healthiest things I could find in the freezer section, as emergency meals. And when I didn't feel like cooking or going out, I'd do that. I can't even do that anymore, because sodium is such a big part of the preservation of food, that when things are frozen, there's more sodium than needs to be. So, of course, there's more sodium in that meal than I should ingest. So I can't eat it anymore. I don't add salt to my food. I don't. Sugar is something I do consume. Certain sugar, but it's very limited. So that's one of the symptoms, is I couldn't eat sodium or sugar anymore the way I had. And I was never a big consumer of it in the first place, which I think was probably part of my natural inclination to get to this time in my life. But when my eyes get tired at the end of the day, I wear glasses. When my eyes get tired and I rub them, or they tear, it burns. And I was really worried about this at first. I'm like, what the hell is that? I would say to myself, what the. And then I get a validation through either my reading or tarot reading saying, yes, what you're experiencing is this change of energy. So yes, you're going to feel these strange symptoms. And so the sodium leaving my body, and that leaves in sweat. So I'm advised to exercise, to sweat, or cry to expel the sodium. And in the same thing with oh my goodness, my whole diet changed. I still eat lean meats, but only on occasion. My body wants homegrown food, and it's funny because I'm like, well, what am I going to eat? And then I'm led to a periodical or an article about homegrown food and how you should eat food from the earth or the soil that you live in. This is how serendipitous my life is. The information that I need to get an understanding, a mental understanding of what I'm going through just appears. This is serendipity. This is the serendipitous energy that I'm now in. And so the other symptoms of this energetic change are ringing in my ear, or headaches, or my neck hurts, or sleeplessness, or I sleep too much, and a feeling of anxiety, or even um, how it was described as dread, a feeling of dread. And these feelings come and go, and I've noticed they're most potent during the full moon, which is another bit of information that I was given to watch the moon phase, because your emotions are connected to the moon phase. And I've never paid any attention to this in my life. But now I know when the full moon is, because I take that back. I don't purposely don't look at when the full moon is, because I'm still testing my understanding of this. But I'll have a perfectly fine day, and the next day I'll wake up with just a feeling of, yeah, I don't wanna use the word dread, because I don't think it's actually dread, but it's almost like a discomfort with my life, and I start to think of these negative things, and by the end of the day, I'm crying, and then I'm wailing, and then I, am exhausted and I sleep. And then I look at the moon phase, and it was a full moon the night before, and I'm like, "Holy shit. What am I, a werewolf now?" I mean, you have these really strange reactions, but this is what I'm told is this energetic upgrade that I'm going through, that in this upgrade, you are incapable of holding on to three-dimensional weight. And I don't mean that literally, although it probably is true there. I haven't really thought about that. My physical weight is down lower than it was throughout the last 25 years. I mean, I'm in a weight range that I was when I was in my 20s. And this was not something I did purposely. I didn't diet. It didn't require any willpower. This was just the natural progression of my diet throughout this change in my energy. So now I'm looking for locally sourced food. I'm looking for responsibly handled food. So that's seafood and meat. So I'm not able to buy meat at the grocery store anymore. I mean, on occasion I will, when I can find a brand that is responsibly sourced and no hormones and free range and all the keywords that you have to look for, which a lot of them are overused. So you have to be careful there. But I don't consume meats unless I know the source. So it's almost like, and this is an alignment of the body, the physical body with the soul, and my mental body, which is another part of my body, aligning with my emotional body. It's a strange thing, but if you do some research about all the bodies we have the astral body, the causal, I don't remember the rest, and then the physical body. These are all layers of energy over us and then within us that dictate our comfort and our um, alignment with our soul. So it's almost like, when you color something and you use the wrong colors, it looks unbalanced. But when you get good enough to color inside the lines and you color everything the right color, that's an alignment, or that's the way it's supposed to look. And I know that's probably not a good example, but it's an alignment that takes place. So my energy was now working to align the rest of my bodies with my soul energy. So my soul was at work, kind of cleaning house and replacing things with new upgraded things. And I use this example in an article I'm actually writing right now about consciousness, and it's that when your energy is upgraded, it's like using a lithium ion battery, which is the type of battery technology that goes in these new EV vehicles, these electronic vehicles. You can't put a lithium ion battery in a combustion engine. They're two completely different technologies. So not only do you have to change the engine, you have to upgrade the whole inner workings. You can't use the old wiring or the old. It all has to change. So you can't use combustion technology in a lithium ion vehicle. So it's that's really kind of the best example I can use, is my energy is being completely swept out, and actually it's been put that way that you are going to experience a sweeping out of your old energy and a replacement with this crystalline energy. And in this crystalline energy, we are a different person energetically and emotionally. And of course, obviously physically too, which I didn't really think about until my diet started to change. And I was told that this was going to happen. But I didn't really realize it was happening until I got to this point where I'm at the grocery store wandering around going, what the fuck am I going to buy? There's nothing here I want. I literally don't know what I'm going to eat. It's so funny because I complain to my daughter about this all the time. It's like my biggest challenge is feeding myself because I mean, I never ate for sport before, or I was never a foodie. I kind of ate for fuel. It was kind of the way I looked at food. And again, I think this is part of the person that I've always been. I'm just kind of getting rebooted back to who she was. So I've always had these tendencies, but I'd never had these kind of like this awareness of it. So when I go to the grocery store, I only shop the outer aisle, the perimeter. I don't really buy anything on the inside aisles because that's where all the processed food is. So, I'll get my ketchup and my peanut butter and, that the stuff that we keep in our pantry, and that's even limited. But, I buy my pasta fresh now. I can't eat the dry pasta. I buy it from a company that makes it in Cleveland, Ohio, which is near where I live. I have this weird kind of unconscious shopping habit. It's almost like I don't even walk in those aisles anymore. And now I'm really kind of saying it out loud for the first time. It's kind of strange, but this is part of what's happening to me in this change of energy. So I'm not able to eat the same. I've dropped a lot of weight, and I was never a big person. I I look at everything differently. I noticed something else that is happening to me is, when you're going through a heartbreak or recovery or healing of any kind, your mindset is always to just survive. You just want to kind of heal. And you don't really think beyond that. And most of us, and me included for a long time, never thought beyond that. I just kind of went back to what I was doing and hoped that I was going to be okay. And of course, that's a crossroad I came to after the trauma at the end of this relationship. Is I normally would just kind of unconsciously decide to go back to where I was, and whether it was with the person I left or another relationship who would end up similarly. This time I had to make a conscious choice. I'm like, no friggin' way can I go back there. So when I made that decision, I just decided to go down this path, and it took me to this place in the unknown, which is where I am now, and I'm discovering all these things, for the first time, and it's just kind of amazing when I think about it. But now that I'm in this energy, when I went through this trauma and I went through the healing, our natural tendency is just to keep surviving. And I didn't notice until yesterday when I was driving that I'm not even able to do that anymore. And I say able is not something I want to do again, but I've this is something new I'm noticing in this new energy, and I don't think it's done because I still have these symptoms. Some days they're pretty strong, where I just am, like, for example, I went for a walk in the park, and I went for the walk I normally go on, as I was going back to my car, I started to feel this exhaustion where I had to stop, and when I got in my car and got home, I had to sit on the couch with my feet up for a half an hour to catch my breath. And I'm like, "Okay," and I tell myself and I say it out loud, "I know this is part of this process, don't get upset, you're fine." I have to tell myself that. And then I'll get a validation in a tarot reading saying, "Yes, you're still going through this upgrade, be patient. You're gonna feel ill sometime. Be patient." And so I have to remind myself that I'm going through this incredible transmutation, and it's not just emotional, it's not just mental, it's physical. It's so strange. It's so strange. But at the same time, it's the only thing in my life that makes sense. So, I'm being warned that once I get this upfit or this upgrade, my old life won't fit anymore. And that's already happening. I mean, not only don't my clothes fit me anymore, and I went to find something because the weather's turning cool to put a jacket on yesterday, and I'm like, holy crap, nothing fits me anymore. I look like a homeless person because I all my clothes are so big and, and I'm thinking about the relationships in my life and how they don't fit anymore, and I honestly, I didn't have a lot of relationships before this, but, I relationship even with family members has changed, and one of them has ended because of this change, and I give my I'm the one who changed, so I don't blame my sibling. This is on me. This relationship was not good for me, and I didn't, I wasn't able to mentally or consciously end that relationship or change it at least. I tried to change it, but it ended as a result. But my energy is now in charge. So my mind doesn't have anything to say about it. My brain doesn't have a say about it. So instead of me telling myself I'm okay and get through it and tolerate it, my energy now just says, "No, you're done." And it controls my mouth, which says, "I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore." And I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, "What just happened?" It's almost like my brain is now a tool of my soul. It is no longer, and I've said this before, it doesn't dictate my life anymore. And I'm still getting used to this. It's like driving a new car. I guess I can go back to that analogy. I have to figure out the controls. They're different. The steering wheel is not in front of me anymore. My hands don't steer the car anymore. It is so surreal. And I know I'm simplifying it, but I wanna give you an example that you can, identify with. This is different. It's like getting into a vehicle and the controls are all internal because my heart and my soul are driving. So although I can see a speedometer and I can see miles per hour and I can see this data, I'm not controlling anything with my mind. And it's a strange place to be in. I mean, my mind is of course still very useful. It does the research, it does the reasoning, the contemplation, it takes the action in the world to do the things that my soul wants me to do. And it's funny, the way I speak is different. When I talk to people, I identify myself as my soul self. It's not really, but this feels right. This is right now. I'm no longer the person I was before. And boy, I didn't realize what that really meant. So these old relationships don't fit anymore. My clothes don't fit anymore. My environment doesn't fit anymore. And it's kind of strange because I keep being told I'm going to live in a more temperate climate in a specific country, and I won't mention the country because I don't know for sure that's where I'm going to end up. But I believe this is where I'm going, and I've written about it. But I did research in this country, and the temperature is subtropical, which means it doesn't ever go below like 40 degrees and never above like 70. And I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly the environment, like the temperate environment I want to live in because I can't tolerate the very cold weather or the very hot weather anymore. And again, extremes, of course, all of us experience that, but I'm like, this is something I notice now. It's like when it's too warm, I'm incredibly uncomfortable, and it's even upsetting. And the same if I'm too cold. So, my old environment, like quite literally, is no longer conducive to who I am as a person, as a human being, as a physical being. And this is such I don't think I've ever spoken about this out loud before. And this is what I love about these podcasts is my mind or my soul just takes over and she's talking about what she wants to talk about apparently. So, I'm changed in every way and I'm still changing. It's a transmutation. It's an evolution. And when this is something I'm learning about because I learned that my daughter is referred to as an indigo child, and I think that maybe I am too, although I haven't connected that dot yet. And that the next wave of children is the crystal children, which are the crystalline energy, and then the rainbow children. And the child my daughter is bringing into the world is identified, at least I've heard her identified as a rainbow child. And again, I mentioned this before. I may or may not do a podcast, or my soul may or may not do one. So research it if you're curious. But the crystal children are made up of this crystalline energy. They don't have carbon based bodies, so they come in lighter. They come in evolved, and they don't have to learn the karmic lessons that the carbon based humans have to learn in order to elevate above a carbon based energy. So, again, this is all very new to me, but when I start to think about this, a periodical arrives in my inbox or in my YouTube channel, or I'll pick up a book and it's about this. And I'm like, oh, and I inform myself. And then I marvel at how I even got this book or how I can. This is how serendipity works in our lives. This is what living in your soul's world feels like. You're no longer working against a current or against a grain. You're no longer suffering through something in order to get through it. Your soul just puts you in the flow of your life and you go. You develop a buoyancy and you kind of can't sink anymore. And I know I'm saying that figuratively, but I think I mean that in every sense of the way, but physically, of course. Well, I don't know. I don't know how buoyant we are in the water. Maybe I don't know, but we become emotionally buoyant and energetically buoyant. So what that means is we no longer get grounded into or stuck into the three-dimensional weight of our old bodies. And that three-dimensional body allows us to live a human life. It allows us this human experience. Gravity requires this density. But the a double-edged sword of this is that this density allows our energy to store negative memories or the negative impact of our lives. And so this is what we have to kind of clean up in order to evolve. And this is an evolution. This is absolutely an evolution. And the earth is going through this same evolution as we speak. And that's the reason why all of us are going through it. So the earth, which is a consciousness, the earth has its own consciousness. So does every tree and plant, every animal, of course, every being has a consciousness, including the earth. And this earth is evolving. And this is something I've learned through my spirit guides guiding me or leading me to another source of information that has taught me this, that the earth is going through an evolutionary phase, and it's a one in a million. And for the last 25 years or so, it's been going through this elevation of its energy, its own consciousness. And as a human being or humanity living on the surface of this, we have to upgrade too. And not all of us will. And I'm not really sure what that means yet. I don't think it means anything bad, like people are going to die if they don't evolve. That's not at all what I'm getting. But when I think people learn about the end of times or the end of days in their religion, this is what it's referring to. It's not referring to a mass extinction of humans. It's referring to an extinction of the old human and the evolution into this new human. And this new human is utilizing more of the DNA that is considered junk DNA. So if we're only using a very small percentage of our DNA and a very small capacity of our brain, this is what gets activated. And this is what's utilized in this lighter crystalline energy. And us as human beings, and I think this is the reason why I was led to this microphone and why I write what I do and I speak the way I do, is because it's time for us to activate and to get on board with what's going on and to make the changes in our physical lives, our human lives, to eh, to um to assist in this. So, getting out of your head and connecting with your soul and your heart and learning who you are and expelling this weight in our bodies is setting the stage or preparing us for these upgrades, these elevations. It's not just me, it's everyone, every human being. Nobody's left out. It's not like a cult where if you believe in A, B, and C, you're going to heaven. If you believe in, D, E, and F, or whatever that right sequence is, you're going to hell. It's not at all that. It is not an alarmist message. It is just it's an encouragement to, or you know what? It's an ignition. Let's put it that way. So if you are ignited by this or something similar to this, meaning it causes you to think about it and you contemplate it and you end up on a path, that's ignition. You are ignited the way I was ignited through the trauma I went through and my no choice to either go inward or go, I don't know where. So it's an ignition. So, the very the very reason, the very fact that you're listening to this podcast or anything like it, I'm not saying I'm anything special, anything that ignites you, that illuminates you. That's a better word because that illumination causes an awareness. So it's a light being shown in a dark room. It's exactly the same thing. You start to see things you didn't see before. And when you see that, you can't kind of unsee them, and you end up going down a certain path of discovery towards that, which takes you through this internal, inward soul journey. And it's only through that journey, and I'm only saying this from my experience. If there are more ways, please, of course, but from my experience, I had to break in half. I had to die as an ego in order to discover my true self, which is my soul self. And in that discovery, I met my soul team, my spirit guides, who I talk about a lot and I speak to every day. And they validate everything that I feel and think. They tell me, yes, you're right. And I remember this several months ago when I was still getting used to getting these information from these tarot readings, which I only looked at very occasionally. And then I started looking at them more often as they started to repeat. And then one day I got a reading where it said, this is, I'm the person that is speaking to me is the higher self of my daughter. This is the first time and only time really that I've had a reading where she was the person speaking to me. And she said to me in that reading, lean into your spirituality, meaning lean into what's happening. You know that you're being spoken to by the soul realm. Don't doubt it anymore. Lean into it. You're not going to lose your logic. That's how it was put. Because I kept thinking, is this real? Is this really what I'm experiencing, or is this my mind? And I've always been told and still being told to trust your intuition. What you feel is real. And that took me a while, but when I started to trust my intuition, I knew that I was being spoken to by my spirit guides, by not only my spirit guides, but by ancestors who are around me, guiding me, by um, archangels, which I never understood what an archangel was, who have specific work to do with me to either get me ready for what I'm going to be doing or what I am doing. They're reinforcing my heart. They're helping me with confidence. They're helping me with believing in myself, with trusting my intuition, with my physical health. I keep being told I'm going to feel better soon. Just be patient because I'm still feeling this lack of energy, but it's because of this other thing, this upgrade. So I keep being informed and validated and led to other sources of information. And in this reading from my daughter's higher self, which I just recently told her about, that's why I'll share it with you. I didn't know if it would freak her out or not, so I didn't want to tell anybody else until I told her. And all she said to me was, "See, I told you I was smart," which was awesome. But she told me to lean into my spirituality. And to me, that meant my intuition told me that meant allow these readings to be a communication from the soul realm. And when I let go of my doubt, boy, did it come in a flow. And now it's to a point where I can go every day if I want to. I don't have to. And I get something really relevant that, something big is coming, Gina. Not, they don't, well, I actually was referred to as G in one of the readings, but something big is coming that's going to change my career. And a soulmate is coming who is going to be integral in all of my energy being activated, who's been described as half of my soul. And I'm being prepared for this. So, and I'm being told constantly to be patient, and your soul wants you to learn faith. I'm sorry. Fate is what's happening. These are fated things that are coming in my future because my soul is here to do these things. But boy, I realize how excited I am. Normally, I'm really calm. This is exciting. This lights me up. This is my soul's passion. This is what my soul is here to do. So I'm being prepared energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally for all of the things that I'm doing now and will be doing. And this partnership that's coming and this change in my career that's coming, and probably most likely a change in my environment, my physical environment. I will likely move to another country to be in that subtropical climate that I talked about. And to allow the most comfortable environment for my body and soul to live the rest of this life. Why would I live somewhere I'm not comfortable? My soul says, let's go. So I'm going. it's almost like you have this connection. It's innate now. It's like my soul is who I am now. And of course, my body and my mind are important, but I don't suffer with anything anymore. I don't suffer with decisions. I don't suffer with lack. And this is something I was thinking about yesterday, which started this whole thought process at the very beginning of this, which I'm really pleased I went back to it because normally I never do. But I was driving to get some dinner because I don't cook much because cooking is too annoying, and keeping food in my refrigerator that's fresh is very hard. And yeah, it's a whole thing. I got to figure that part out. But I was going to one of the few restaurants that I go to because I know they have responsibly sourced food, and I think, well, they advertise that they do. And I was driving there thinking about my income, and I'm like, okay, so I'm always planning. I left my job 3 months ago, kind of on a spur of the moment and an impulse because my soul team said, "Hey, let go of this job. You're not happy. Get out." And I just so intent on wanting to do what my soul wanted, I just kind of quit. I did it on good terms, and I gave him plenty of notice, but I just didn't really think about how I was going to make money. I'm like, okay, you're going to be 60 soon. Well, you can retire in a couple years. You can start using your retirement money, but what am I going to do? Your brain just goes on this friggin' tangent. And I notice it and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I'm always planning. I'm getting the calculator out. Okay, how much money do I need I have this much money to get to this point, and then by that point I don't have anything else coming from my work, which I want to make money from my work. I got to get a job then, and your brain is just insane. Let's just be honest. But I'm noticing over the last few weeks where I'm having breaks in these tantrums, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to worry about this. My soul keeps telling me, my soul team keeps telling me, you're never going to feel lack again. You're never going to not have what you need ever in your life again, ever. And it took a while for that to really seed and to really become a part of my brain, because your brain is the last thing to get on board. This energy, this new energy has to come through the universe into your body. It has to get through all of these levels or layers of your body. And again, I wish I wrote them down: the astral level, the causal level, and there's three others, I think. And then your physical, mental, your mental is one of them. So I guess it's like a thick skull. It takes a while to get through it. I'm driving and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't have to worry about this anymore. And a few weeks ago, I was thinking, wait, do I have to worry? Kind of reasoning, do I have to worry about this? Or, am I going to be abundant? Because I keep being told that I'm in this new abundant energy. What does that mean? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Gina, you've worked your entire life. I mean, literally since you were 14 years old, when my first job at Burger King. I've been working since I was 14 in order to survive, quite literally. My family was always lacking money. We were always moving. We never had anything. When I went into adulthood, I was just surviving. I never had more than I needed. It was just the mentality that I was in. And we do this. We expect to just survive, and that's all we do. I just wrote about this, and I'm gonna write more about it. But just remember this: as above, so within, or so below. Think about what that means. That means that your internal belief system dictates your outer life. And I don't want to get on a tangent there because I want to stick with what I was saying. So throughout my life, I feel this lack because that's what I'm trained and conditioned to feel. I never had enough. I always had enough. Let me correct that. But I never had much more. But as I went through the last several years of my life, self-employed, I actually saved money, and I I kind of got really good at managing my money, our money, because we had a business, we were together. And then when I left my business, I had my own money. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm okay. I can actually take the summer off, is how I put it. But I'm still feeling that lack. But it's changing. I can feel it changing. I'm like, I no longer worry about it. I'm like, how did I quit my job? I never would have done that before without having another job. And I'm like, okay, I'm 59 years old now. Who the frig is going to hire me if I need a job? And I'm like, I just didn't, it didn't occur to me, first of all, but after a while, and I did take the summer off without thinking about it. And now it's getting into the fall, and I'm thinking, okay, am I going to have to get a job? And I was talking to my sister about this. I'm like, I think, I could probably make it till December. And then I'm going to probably have to start thinking about getting a job. And But I notice when I try to think about it, it doesn't ever last very long. And I didn't notice till yesterday when I was driving to get dinner that it's difficult now for me to try to focus on that feeling of lack or that energy of lack that causes you to worry about anything. And I said to myself out loud as I was driving, I'm like, "Holy shit. I don't ever have to think about that anymore. I am in an energy of abundance now." And that's what this means. Because you change from this three-dimensional heavy energy which traps you into this mindset or this energetic body where you worry, where you're concerned about everything. And this is not your fault. This is, I mean, it's conditioning too, of course, and it's our own beliefs, which we have control over, we can change. But it's not your fault that you store this energy. It is kind of like just something that you do as a human. It happens. It's like a double-edged sword. You know, the body allows you the gravitational experience, but it also stores this negative shit. So when you do the work of going, you know, of your shadow work, it's referred to, or walking your inner landscape, you focus on intending to clear yourself of this old energy, and this is how you start to elevate. So do that. That's the reason for that elevation, or that's the catalyst to that elevation is you intending to elevate. So when I say you're ignited by something, that your intention seeds, and you kind of don't have control anymore. You just go that direction. So you don't think your way there. You can't think your way there, but your mind can take you to where you need to go, but then it catalyzes you, or it causes a catalyst to the knowing or the remembering in your body that starts to cause you to think differently, to feel differently, and to do things differently. So you don't need a set of instructions. Just stop struggling. Stop worrying, or I shouldn't say stop worrying. Stop looking externally for your salvation and know that you carry all the information within your body. You just have to remember it. And I refer to consciousness as this in the article I'm writing right now. Consciousness is just remembering what we knew before we were born. And we knew this as babies and children too, and we didn't forget it until we started having an individualized experience. Till we started to see ourselves as an individual, then we started to feel alone. Do you see what I'm saying? In a state of consciousness, you remember that you're one with all, with everything. So feeling alone is not possible anymore. And I won't go into that much either, but so this feeling of lack that used to be innate in me, that am I going to have enough money? Am I going to be healthy enough? Am I going to be loved enough? Am I going to be, you know, am I going to have any fun in my life? You know, everything is a struggle. But what I didn't realize until I started to experience it is that ability to struggle leaves you. That capacity to struggle, to worry leaves you, cuz like I wake up some mornings and I'm like walking around my house going, "Okay, I got nothing going on today. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have a love in my life. I don't have, you know, a steady source of income. I have a lot of things I could worry about, but why do I feel so good?" And I just go to the park and I take my walk, or I stand in the water and I come home and I, you know, listen to a reading, or I write my book, or I do a podcast, or I write an article, or I go lay on the couch, or whatever. I don't even think about it anymore. It's like I'm not capable of thinking about it. I think because my body has just changed so much, my, you know, my physical body, my energetic body, my soul has upgraded everything. So it's almost like I don't have the capacity to feel bad for very long. And I'm not saying that I don't have emotional events, because I do, but I believe this is still my soul cleaning house. And it actually was put that way. You're going to be going through a house cleaning. It's almost like I did the bulk of the work, the heavy lifting, and now this new energy comes in, almost like a the cleaning crew, and literally sweeps out this old energy from my body, the parts that are stuck in the corners maybe. And I experience that by these kind of random emotional events where I feel sadness, deep sadness in a moment, and then I cry, and then I'm perfectly fine. And I'm like, "What the frig was that?" But I understand now that's what that is. So Yeah, I still get sad and I still have bad feelings, but they don't stick. It's almost like a Teflon coating on my interior now. It just doesn't stick. And I'm marveling at this idea. Yesterday driving, I'm thinking, "Holy crap, I don't have to worry about money ever again. I'm always gonna have what I need." That's what I've been told over and over again. And I don't know where it's gonna come from. I have no idea. And I don't need to know. And I think the need to know is the part that's changed. That need is what's changed. The ego wants you to need. So within that need, it instills fear. And that fear is what causes or directs our lives. Without that need, there's no fear. So what's driving this vehicle now is just this pure energy that wants to complete this mission that I'm on, which is to fill my purpose in this life, which is to talk about the negativity in my life, to talk about the darkness and then the lightness, to take you on the journey that I went through. And that's what my book is about. And by the way, I started writing this book before I ever knew about this. The book that I'm writing started as an article about my ex-husband. The working title was vacant. The word was just vacant. That was all about him because I was still in that low energy, that pain, that trauma when I started writing. And I intended to put it out as an article or a blog on my blog, my website, which I have many other articles. But it never finished. I kept adding to it. And as I started the healing process, my tone changed and my intention changed and the whole book changed. And now the book title is completely different. And I'm not going to share the title yet because it may change, but the book is now about me. And it quickly became about me. The first part of it is about him because he, that relationship with him, which I really can take him out, the relationship with him was the catalyst to me going inward. So yes, I described that in detail in the beginning of this book. But after that, that's done. That part is completely done and it's about me. And the book is already, I don't know how many pages long now, but the book will end when it naturally ends, and I don't know when that'll be, but I'm still writing it. But it's no longer about the pain. It's about the healing and the awakening and the this new world, which I'm describing to you in this podcast. So when you go inward and you intend to heal yourself, because only we can heal ourselves. And let me take that back. Your soul heals you. Your soul guides you through this healing. And for me, I had this soul team who was also instrumental. And I was told early on during these readings that you're connecting with your soul team at this time in your life because you're meant to engage with this support system to guide you through the rest of this journey, which is fulfilling my life's purpose in this life, engaging with my soulmate who will be a partner in my life. And together we have a whole other mission. So they didn't want to leave that up to chance. So they engaged me in order to guide me. And I get guidance every single day. And the guidance led me to change the way I wrote, which is my blog. So I actually went back and rewrote a lot of the articles that I did. The first one that I rewrote was Love and the Emotional Vampire, which had a completely different tone when I originally wrote it during my divorce. It was never meant to be a hate, piece, but it read more like that in that heavy energy and the pain I was in. And I thought about whether I should leave it the way it was as kind of a moment of time, but I quickly decided not to, and I rewrote the whole thing in a new tone because I wanted it to reflect me and not him. So actually, I went back and added to or modified almost every blog I'd written in that heavy energy to upgrade it along with where I was. And now everything I write now, I give my spirit guides more credit than me and the archangels and the Pleiadians and whomever else who has a good, loving intention who wants to speak through me, I invite them to do that. They're in everything I write and they're in everything that I say. So, when I write an article now, it flows out of me like water. And sometimes I'm like, wait, that only took me, articles used to take me months to write. And of course, I trust that the podcasts are gonna be what they are. I don't plan them. I don't have a script. I don't even write down keywords. I just get on the microphone and I allow what comes up to come up. Sometimes, and I have a couple times noticed I had a topic I started with, but this is a good example today. I had no idea. I actually intended on talking on one thing and went a whole different way, but my point is that I'm just trusting that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and I've been told over and over that I'm using my voice and the truth about myself in order to fulfill the purpose my soul wants to fulfill. And of course, I had to lead this karmic life in order to gather the data to share. So when I can see my life from that this high vista, of course everything makes sense. So nothing bothers me anymore about it. The deepest abuse and trauma I went through is no longer a concern. It's no longer in my body because I can't hold it. First of all, my energy doesn't have the capacity, and it doesn't make any sense to me mentally. It's like plastic surgery. I have to go through this pain and healing in order to be this new version of myself. It's the same thing. I had to go through that in order to get to where I am. So why would I discount that or villainize that? It's not within me. I don't have the capacity anymore. I haven't for a while, but I really don't now. So, that lack mentality that I suffered my whole life and is gone. And I still don't know how I'm going to support myself. But I'm not worried. It's like I start to think about it, and then I like lose track. Like my mind goes somewhere else, and I'm like, wait, that's a flip. Because I used to try to think positively, and my mind would flip me right back to all the negative. But that's changed now. And I was marveling at this on my way to get dinner last night. I'm like, I don't have to worry about this, do I? I don't. And this is almost like it's like I get my fuel from the sun now. I don't have to go to the filling station anymore and worry, are they going to be out or is it going to be too expensive? It's like the sun is comes out every day. Even when it's cloudy, the sun rays get through. You know what I'm saying? That energy is abundant. It's everywhere. So this abundance is who I am now. It's not just where I am, it's who I am. I know this sounds nuts, and if I listen back to this, I'm probably gonna go cringe a little bit. I just need you to know that this what I'm saying is my experience, and this is my truth, and this is what I'm supposed to do. I keep being told, "Tell the truth." And I have no other choice. I mean, I don't even edit these podcasts. First of all, I have no idea how to do it, so it frees me from having to learn, but it wouldn't be what it's supposed to be, and I don't wanna discount this. I wanted to give it everything I have and be as honest and forthcoming about everything, and I have about sex, about my own life in every way. Sex, love, my beliefs, all of it. I don't care who agrees with me, and I guess that's the point. I don't have to worry about how it's received. I'm just responsible for putting it out there. You don't have to believe what I believe or think how I think. It's not about that. It's about choosing your own way and having your own experience and allowing that to come through you the way that it comes through you. We're all so incredibly unique. I was thinking about this last week. I'm thinking about, oh my God, look what I did. This is the human me thinking about what I've done here in the last several months. I've turned my deepest pain into art. I mean, that's what artists do, right? Musicians do it, performing artists do it, performance artists, painters. Every form of art is an expression of our emotions, and the most dramatically inspiring or impactful art comes from pain. It's a way to transmute it into something beautiful, and that's how we share it with the world, and that's how we ignite others. There's that ignition I was talking about. So it's not through studying or learning. It's through allowing yourself to be who you are by engaging with your soul self, who's trying to get your attention throughout your entire life. All of us, every one of us. I am not special in this way at all, except for maybe in the context that my soul wanted to do this in this lifetime. and didn't in the previous lifetime. So I would have been somebody wandering around aimlessly until I died. This lifetime, I wasn't meant to do that. And maybe you're not, or the person next to you isn't. I don't know. It's not up to me. I have no opinion here. I'm not opining on this. I am just telling you my story. And what I believe is that we're all meant to be ignited at the time we are ignited. And whatever we do previous to that is what we're meant to do, no matter how devastating or how bad we view it or how negative we view it or how painful it is. We're meant to go through it. We're gathering data. We're evolving. We're learning. So, for me, I can only tell you from my perspective that this enlightenment or this spiritual awakening or whatever key phrase you want to use, it I don't know what any other way now. It just is what it is. So this is the ignition that I'm talking about, though. This is the art. So when I think of myself as an artist now, I mean, I put this through my motions on paper in my articles and in the book I'm writing and in this microphone. This is we affect other people with our art. So, when you go to a museum and you're brought to tears by an image or by somebody's art, this is what I'm talking about. This is that emotional connection, and that connection is not accidental. This is an ignition. Like starting a car, it's a spark. And this ignition either causes you to go inward or it prepares you to do it. One or the other. And it happens when it happens, and it's not up to us when it happens. So you can't think your way there. So if you get off, if you listen to this and you say, well, I'm going to become, emotionally aware or awakened or conscious, sure, you can think about it and you can maybe do some research but it comes from your energy. It comes from your soul. It's when your soul wants to do it. So I guess the reason I want to say that this way is because I don't want you to beat yourself up if you have an idea of yourself here, because until your soul wants to do it, you're not going to do it. So please let go of that. That's another way of it's another form of control that your mind wants to have. Your mind says, "Oh, I want to be there, so let me get myself there." And then they fall down and they bleed and they break something or they end up, devastated and they hate life because they didn't get where they wanted to go. It doesn't work that way. It's the exact opposite. You have to let go of your ego and your mind and the control that it has over you. And you can't, it's not an easy feat. For me, it took a trauma. I know it can be done other ways, but I'm not educated on those ways, so I can't speak about them. But when you're tired of life beating the shit out of you, sometimes getting up and brushing yourself off isn't the answer. Sometimes you got to sit down and go, why the fuck do I have to keep getting back up? And whenever the time is right for you is whenever it is, and it may not be in this lifetime. And I just want to say that again because beating yourself up because you're not where you want to be is counterintuitive to this whole thing. Self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion, empathy is the only tools that you need to get yourself here. Because when you accept who you are right now in the moment, nothing needs to change. When you accept yourself right now in the moment, I don't care how much you weigh or how old you are or how ugly you think you are or how smart you think you are or how successful you think you are. When you love yourself as you are right now, when you accept yourself with compassion, you allow yourself to be who you are. And that's the first step. You see what I'm saying? So your ego cannot be involved here. Your ego has to go sit in the back row. This is your empathy and your compassion that has to be engaged. You have to do that for yourself first. This is what I had to do. And you go where it takes you. I can't describe that path. It's different for everyone. I describe my path in detail. But I believe that it's different for everyone. We're all unique. So, I mean, technically it's the same, of course, but I can't talk you there. You have to experience it yourself. And If you find yourself ordering books or looking at different material or listening to more of these types of podcasts, the chances are pretty good your soul's preparing you. Just go with it. Don't worry about it. Don't decide. You can't decide. It's not up to you. That was my experience anyway, and I will never pretend to know what's right for you. It's not my job. It's not my position. But by sharing my story, what I've been told is what I'm doing is not informing or educating, but igniting. And that is something submental. It's sub body. It's in your energy. It's deep in your heart. That ignition doesn't take place in your brain. So I'm still marveling at this whole thing and so grateful. And gratitude's another thing. I'm like insanely grateful. It's almost like it not to nauseum how grateful I am. And but gratitude creates abundance. Gratitude creates abundance. So if you hate your life and you hate your boss and you hate your partner and you hate, or you blame, and you can't see anything good in your life, you are stuck in that energy that is always going to bring more of that to you. More of the same. May I have some more, please? Is what you're asking the universe when you complain. And I'm not saying we won't occasionally do that. Of course we do. But then we catch ourselves and we say, wait a minute, what am I complaining about? Let's instead think, what can I be grateful for? There's a science to this. There's a mechanical process here. You have to engage with your self-compassion, self-love. You have to engage with your gratitude. These are the keys that open up these causal doors. You know what I'm saying? You can't just walk up to the door and knock it down. You have to take this process. So, you know, s- accepting ourselves is the first step. And I don't care what a fucking mess I am. You accept yourself as you are right now. Not, I have to lose 15 pounds before I feel good, or I have to make $10,000 more a year before I can feel good, or I have to meet the right person. All these future yous don't exist. The only you is right now. And if you don't accept him or her right now, you're never going to ignite this process. So you love and accept yourself as you are right now, and that's not with an agenda to change yourself. I didn't change anything about myself. My energy, my soul did it. Do you see what I'm saying? Your brain has nothing to do with this. Your hands have nothing to do with this, except for when you're activated to do something for your soul in this lifetime, build something, create something. So you have to first accept yourself for who you are. And I can tell you without any doubt, if I hadn't done that, I would never gotten here. I had to surrender and I had to console myself. I had to hold myself and say, it's going to be okay. I promise you, it's going to be okay. And in that holding or embracing of myself, I began to love myself and cherish myself. And when I started to love and cherish myself, I wanted to then protect myself from all of the negative. You see what I'm saying? You can't go back to the old ways because they're hurtful. They cause pain. And now I want to protect myself. And because I'm protecting myself, I'm building an environment where I can feel comfortable and protected. And then the environment becomes conducive to the things I really want in my life. And then I start to think and feel loving towards myself. And because I feel and think loving thoughts, it starts to manifest in my mind and then in my life. And I create abundance in my life through gratitude for what I have now, even if I feel like it's not enough. You're alive. You have what you need. You start there. It's a process. It's not something you don't open a door and walk in. You have to find your way there. And that journey is different for all of us. And it's meant to be because your soul wants it to be a unique journey for you. Your soul wants its own unique journey. And you're here to facilitate it. Let me put it that way. It's not really for you. Your soul's having an experience in this animated body. Well, the soul animates the body. So it's using this vehicle or this vessel to have this experience. So the mind is a tool of this body it facilitates the soul's journey. So when we overinvest in the mind, we go off course. When we overinvest in the soul, we don't have an engaged, grounded experience in life either. We don't want to do either. We don't want either extreme. We want a balance. So that self-love is seeing yourself for who you are without judgment, stripping yourself of your own facade, of your own mask. And it's not easy. And sometimes you're not aware of the mask. And this was true for me. And one of the reasons why I stayed so long in my business with my ex-husband after we were divorced, after the trauma I went through because of him, I stayed every day because I wanted to learn my tendencies so I could change that about myself. And I learned many, many things. And one of them was I manipulate people through my emotionally, and I was not aware of this. I manipulate people, this compassionate, empathetic freak of nature who gets trampled on by everybody because I'm so loving and giving. I manipulate people. What are you kidding? Oh, frig, yeah, I did. I had no awareness of it until I had an epiphany. An epiphany is your higher self giving you some information that you need. And what I realized about myself was on the way home from a job that my ex-husband and I were in a truck together. And these were very uncomfortable situations for me because I was energetically like appalled by this relationship. It was like almost like negative magnets now, where before we couldn't help but be stuck together. Now I couldn't be around him without feeling very sick sometimes. But I forced myself to do it because I wanted to learn. So we're in this truck going home from this long day. And I was hungry and I wanted to go to this specific restaurant. And I knew if I brought it up, I wouldn't have to ask him. And back in the old days, he would just say, "Oh, what do you want?" And we'd go there. And I didn't realize till later that night that I was trying to emotionally manipulate him to take me where I wanted to go for dinner. This is how stupid it is. Not stupid, how petty it is, this tendency in me. But when I look back in my life, I had used it over and over. So instead of saying, "Hey, would you mind stopping at this restaurant so I can get some food?" I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm kind of hungry. Are you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I could eat." And I said, "Well, this kind of sounds good. I think maybe I'll get this tonight." And I didn't realize I was doing it. And I fully expected him to say, "Oh, well, let's go. I'll take you there." It was a stupid thing. And like not even anything important. But he didn't bite, which I'm grateful he didn't. And I went, got my truck, and I went to the restaurant, got my own food, and I went home and ate. And it wasn't until later that evening that I had an epiphany. I literally went, "Holy shit." I was trying to manipulate him into doing what I wanted him to do. And I realized that this is how I lived my whole life with him. I never asked for what I wanted. For some reason, I didn't feel worthy of it. I just kind of hoped that I could lead somebody to where I wanted to go without having to ask. And I really didn't understand it then. But this is the lack in me. This is the inability for me to stand up for myself and to ask for what I want. That was a big lesson I wouldn't have learned without staying. And I'm not saying everybody should stay in a toxic situation. Please don't take that from this. God, no. This was my experience. I had to do it for me. I knew I was safe, okay? He wasn't abusive in that way. It was emotional. So I knew I was safe. So I had to just manage myself. Do you see what I'm saying? So when I had this epiphany, I realized that one of the tendencies, and I remember this in the work environment, I would be upset because I didn't get a raise or a promotion because I assumed that the work I did was all I needed to do in order to earn it. But I could never walk into my boss's office and say, "Hey, I want this." I wanted him to give it to me because I earned it. I left jobs because of this, because I felt undervalued because I didn't get what I wanted, but I never asked for it. This was a huge one for me. So because I was in this introspective energy, I was able to get this message from my higher self. I didn't miss it. So being in this energy of looking for inner wisdom, looking for tendencies in myself that caused me pain in my life. Again, I can only talk about my own experience, but my soul wanted this now. It was time now. So, my point here is that your soul decides. I think this is my point, and forgive me if it's not where I was, but your soul decides when to do this. So, my mind and body facilitated it, of course, but my soul's driving and my soul is doing what she wants right now. And I'm just getting out of her way. And it's such a beautiful feeling to relax in this energy, to know that you don't have to drive anymore. And not only do you not have to drive, there's no steering wheel. So you can't even, you couldn't if you wanted. And it's such a liberating feeling to go through life in this abundant synchronistic energy that when you need something, it just appears. And I'll give you another example of this. I was going through a time where I was feeling a little bit alone, and this was part of this process of releasing these emotional, having these emotional events where my body was being cleared of this old energy. And one of the mornings I woke up and I felt really lonely. Excuse me. And I said to my out loud, I said, "Boy, I wish I had somebody to talk to. I have nobody in my life that I can talk to about any of this spiritual stuff." Because I talk to my sibling and I love her, but she's not in the same place I am. So I limit what I talk about. My daughter, who I love, she understands all this, but I don't want to kind of put on all this on her. When she asks me about it, I talk about it, but I really don't otherwise because she's in her own space. She's going through her own thing, and that's not her role. So there's literally no one in my life I can talk to about this. So I would say I said, could you please send me somebody to talk to? Please, anybody. It doesn't have to be a soulmate. I just want to talk to somebody. And I didn't realize this till 2 days ago, walking in the park, talking to this fascinating woman that, oh my gosh, here it is, the person I was looking to talk to, this beautiful Hindu woman who the first time she spoke to me was talking about Sadhguru, who is this person in India who espouses this incredible knowing and has these events and these. I was familiar with him. I don't follow him closely, but I've seen him in my YouTube feed, and he talks about the things that I went through. He's known as an avatar. He's an activated person who goes through his life living his teachings or teaching his living, however you want to put it. He's a spiritual leader. And this is an avatar. And I believe this from my own learning is that he is the modern day Jesus. And so is Eckhart Tolle. And so is all these other spiritual people who pop up in your inboxes or on your feeds or in your bookcases. These are the modern day Jesus because they are here walking this earth as igniters. They ignite people. So she's talking to me. I literally walked up to walking this path in this new park, and I didn't know where this path went. And she was talking to another woman. And I just said, "Excuse me, could you tell me where this path goes?" And she said, "Oh, yes, it goes here and here." And she was done talking to the woman. She said, "I'll walk with you." This was a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago. And we had a 2-hour conversation about Sadhguru and about, I didn't speak much about myself because I just met this woman. And I just let her talk and I just listened and I interjected a little bit, but she talked about all these spiritual concepts and these, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, where'd this person come from? And it didn't occur to me till yesterday that I asked my soul team for somebody to speak to, and they sent me somebody to speak to. And I was so fascinated. I said, thank you so much. I didn't even realize it, that I've been speaking to this woman for 3 weeks. Every few days, I go to the park and there she is. And we walk and talk for an hour. And now I'm talking about myself and I'm talking about my spiritual experience. And she's fascinated. And I'm like, holy crap, I have somebody to talk to. This beautiful, older Hindu woman. And I didn't realize because I wasn't paying attention that I asked for somebody to talk to. And the synchronistic, beautiful thing happened where this woman popped up in front of me. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the abundant energy that I'm living in, where I can ask for something and it appears. So I don't worry about money. I'm not worried. I know I don't know what's going to happen, but I just know I'll be okay. And I don't have the ability to worry about it anymore. And that was the point of this whole kind of tangent I took. It's amazing. And I don't know where this is going to take me. I have no idea, but I'll keep reporting on it. Um, and I realize these podcasts are getting very long, so my apologies, but, I feel like this is a good place to stop. I feel so completely energized. I'm shaking. It's just this is such an abundant energy, uh, and I'm so grateful to my soul team, my spirit guides, and the archangels, and my higher self, and the higher self of my daughter, and my future soulmate, and the higher self of my ex husband, who are all with me. I'm so grateful to all of them, and I just want to thank them for being with me and for facilitating all that I'm doing and for creating this body of work, which is so fascinating to me still. So thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful for you, for your attendance here, because you give me a purpose. You're listening, and I just want to thank you so much, and I look forward to the next time to speak to you, and I wish you great gratitude and great acceptance of yourself and self-love and abundance in your lives as well. And I wish for you just love, just love. So thank you so much for sharing your space, your energy, your love with me. And I will speak to you again soon.